Hey IBMers, this is David Moulton, and I wanted to share some of my tips, tricks, and personal practices for keeping my family and myself safe at home and protecting our privacy. I manage the vast majority of our security and privacy through a couple of iOS devices and my Linksys router. And that security extends to cover 19 different devices on our network. Something that I recommend everyone does is take an inventory of everything that is on your network. I had some old devices that had no business being online anymore and some that I had just forgotten about. And it makes it hard to keep everything up to date if you don't know what you have. I use the Linksys Velop Wi-Fi 6 app and some public DNS resolvers as my main network and access controls. So one of the first things that I did with the Linksys app was go through and rename everything that's on my network so that I can tell what the device is and who it belongs to. I also use the parental controls to limit internet access for my kids' devices. And finally, I've set up two different networks, Skywalker and Droids being for all of my Internet of Things stuff, and Skywalker for personal devices. One other great feature is device prioritization, which lets me prioritize who can get on with the best connection. The next thing that I do to protect browsing in particular from home computers is use a public DNS resolver. And I happen to use Quad 9 on my Mac from work and Cloudflare and the app they provided on our iOS devices. A DNS resolver essentially checks where you're going on the internet before you get there. And if it's safe, it passes you to the website. But if it's not safe, it blocks you from something that could be potentially harmful. Quad 9's super easy to set up. They have videos that show you exactly how to do it. Just takes a few minutes. And when you're done, you have a lot safer browsing. And let's take a second to talk about the Cloudflare app. You download it, you turn it on, and you've got protected browsing. Now, these next three are just about privacy. And for me, moving away from Google and using DuckDuckGo ended up being a smart move. I actually really like DuckDuckGo. It's simple to set up. Go to settings, look for your Safari browser, change your setting from search engine equals Google to search engine equals DuckDuckGo, and you're done. Another thing you can do while you're here is add content blockers. I've had great luck with Crystal, Legacy, and Magic Lasso. I've downloaded these from the App Store and installed and activated them on my iPhone and my iPad. I also use Magic Lasso on my macOS device. One thing I don't understand is if they're taking any of my browsing data and selling it. It's nice that they're blocking the ads from popping up and being a part of my online experience, but I do have some suspicions on their business model. Last thing I recommend is turning on limit ad tracking. And this is a feature that allows you to opt out of having an ID for advertisers on your device. And theoretically, it makes it so that you can't be targeted or retargeted with ads because your device doesn't have identity. Now, whether or not that works, I'm not sure, but I've seen some of the engineering from Apple suggesting to me that they're starting to treat ads that violate user privacy in the same way they would a malicious website. This next section is really about data integrity and keeping your apps up to date. So I schedule all of my app updates to happen automatically, and same goes for my backups. But I schedule a day where I go through and I check every single thing on my network once a week. Every device, I go through and see if there's some sort of patch or update that I need to manually bump. And then I double check all of the automatic backups and ensure that they're actually working. One of the things that I don't want to have happen is a phone or an iPad is lost and suddenly all the pictures in particular, but all the personal data, all the settings are gone. And for me, iCloud makes this really easy. I haven't gone to the point where I completely trust it yet. Now, to be fair, it's always worked, which is amazing, and I think a testament to the work that Apple's doing on its services side. So while we're an all iOS household, I used to have a Mac. And when I wanted to make sure that I had an offsite backup that I could count on, Backblaze was my choice. I'm not getting paid for the endorsement, but it just worked and it did an awesome job. I kind of wish that I had a way of having a double redundant so I could back up to iCloud and Backblaze with my iOS devices. And if you've got a computer at home, this is the tool that I would recommend. This is the service that I'd recommend to ensure that everything stays backed up. If you lose a file, you can download it. If you need to go back in and get everything, say you had a fire or somehow a device was stolen, they can actually send you a disk, and they've got different service levels. Great company to work with. Now, this next section is all about social media. And I guess my biggest recommendation would be if you don't need something, get rid of it and or delete it or make it private. For me, the easiest way to do that with Facebook was to delete it. I know that doesn't work for everybody. So I would recommend some automation that can help you manage your privacy settings. I'm going to show you how I do that in Twitter, and the tool actually could work for you in Facebook and some of the other places that we live online. This next app is called Jumbo, and it's what I use to archive my tweets. But it can also be used to tune your privacy settings. It can take a look at a lot of your different social media and accounts that we're in and out of quite often. You can see they cover quite a few apps, and they're always adding new things. I like it because it makes security and privacy a little easier for me, even if I don't use all the tools that are built into Jumbo. This next section is all about passwords and the tools that I use that I've got good passwords. I've not duplicated anything. And in important areas, I'm using multi-factor authentication. And if I have experienced a breach or a compromise, that I'm aware of it and I can update that as quickly as possible. So let's get into it. I use and have been using 1Password for about 15 years, and I use it across all of my devices. It's integrated into iOS and Mac, Android, and PCs, and it's amazing. One of the tools that I really like in 1Password is called Watchtower, and it actually works in tandem for me with Jumbo. So Jumbo can identify when I've been subject to a breach, Credit Karma, which I'm using to take a lens in from any of the financial side, and Have I Been Pwned, which is a place where I can go look up an email address that I use and see if it's been involved in a breach. And inside of 1Password, they have a tool called Watchtower. It will look out for those types of problems, and it allows me to very quickly go out to the site and update my password if there's been a problem. So a couple different ways of finding out about it, and then I manage it all inside of 1Password's Watchtower feature. It's available on your browser version or your desktop version. I haven't been able to figure out how to do that on the mobile version yet, but I'm sure they're working on it. I want to give you a quick sneak peek into Watchtower and some of the things that it can do. You're seeing here the different vaults that I manage. I've got personal and work vaults. Family members have their own vault. And if I go into my vault and I take a look at my passwords, I'm doing okay. I've got some two-factor authentication. I've got a weak password. And this is where I would go in and really take some time and update some of the things that I'm working on, and or I could find my breach report and update those passwords. This next section is a bit of a grab bag, things I do and don't do that I wanted to pass along. So I insist on using 2FA on all of my financial institutions, and I've actually gone a step further and refused to use my social security number as a way to ID me. It was a bit of a hassle to get the banks to play along and give me other ways of identifying myself when I called in, but I was able to get them all to do that. The next is a tool or a product called Cam Jammers, and I bought these online. They're just a few bucks, and they're little vinyl stickers that can go over the various cameras we have on all of our devices. I've seen some others that have slide windows, but those end up not really working for my phone or my iPad, and I like that this sticker pack comes with various sizes, and with one purchase, I have everything covered. Two habits I've had to wean myself off of, made a little bit easier because of LTE being built into my iPad at this point, but is to stay off of public Wi-Fi. You know, it's tempting. You're at the coffee shop or at the airport and you need to pop on, but it's just not worth it for me. And I'll tether my Mac to either my phone or my iPad, or just look up that information on those devices. And the other thing is clicking on things. Anywhere you go, you're going to find things that are tempting to click on, and that's the problem. So I'm really hesitant before I go and click on a link in an email. I'll often just go out to the website itself and log in rather than necessarily trust that the email I got is from that institution. Same thing goes on a website. If I see something that's kind of interesting in an ad or linked, I'll look it up myself. Go back out to DuckDuckGo and search for it, and look for those pathways that aren't tracked and aren't necessarily going to take me off to, a site that I don't want to be on. And I look at the layering between searching for something in a browser or a search engine that I'm a little bit more comfortable with. I don't carry that tracking code with me necessarily. I've got my DNS in so that my resolver is taking me to safer sites, and hopefully with ad blockers and those different pieces, that footprint that I'm leaving, that digital set of clues to who I am, isn't as large. So last tip is be a liar. I lie all the time online. I don't give out my real birth date. I don't say my favorite food. I don't tell you my mother's maiden name. I'm not going to admit what high school I went to in any security question, because I think you can figure those things out. You can look and research, and it's actually pretty easy to find the answers to a lot of these types of questions. And when I do lie and I put something insane in as the answer, then I go put that in my 1Password password manager as a note inside of that account or that website. And if I do need to answer a challenge question, I have it and I can look it up. And you know what? When I go find those answers, they're quite amusing. They're normally silly and insane. So it actually makes security a little bit fun. Thanks for sticking with me for this whole presentation. I know in the live chat that we did here at IBM, there were some other topics that we brought up. I'd like to see those be the basis of our next conversation about security at home. We can talk about how do you build some more advanced tools, or what are we doing about TVs that are spying on you, something I had forgotten about, and any other topic that comes up. For now, I hope this is helpful. Please download the PDF with the links. And if you've got any suggestions or ideas of how I can improve my security at home, know that I'm welcoming those insights and those ideas from the broader community. And if I can help you out, reach out, hit me on Slack. I'd love to talk to you about this.